Today I'd like to change the way you think about startups, entrepreneurs, and Silicon Valley. It bothers me that every startup and every entrepreneur everywhere in the world wants to go to Silicon Valley. And every country and every politician and every support organization wants to create the next Silicon Valley. Why? What's so special about it? Can we really recreate it? Do we really want to? This is what I'd like to talk to you about today. Let's look at the history of Silicon Valley first. The popular belief goes that it was just a bunch of fruit orchards until the 60s, and then semiconductors and integrated circuits just came along, and the Silicon Valley, instead of being populated by apples, became populated by apples with a big A. So it took a really long time to create Silicon Valley, as you can see. But in fact, it took even longer than most people think. If you dig a little bit deeper, you'll realize that the Silicon Valley actually was started in a garage in Palo Alto, but it wasn't the Hewlett-Packard garage, as most people think. It was 30 years earlier, and the first tech startup in Silicon Valley was actually a manufacturer of radio tubes. And Hewlett-Packard, after 30 years, became a supplier of testing equipment to this industry. In the 50s and 60s, Silicon Valley became the microwave valley. And I'm not talking about the ovens here. I'm talking about military stuff. US military funded, with hefty money, research and development, and engineers from across the country started moving there. The rest of the military era is pretty much a blur, but what did remain in Silicon Valley, even through the Cold War, were engineers, and lots of them. They were the ones to start new companies, and they were the ones to start new industries, such as semiconductors and personal computers. If there's another organization besides the US military that's critical to the success of Silicon Valley, it has to be Stanford University. Together with Berkeley, they attracted top talent from across the United States, first for the microwave startups, and then more recently for the tech startups. Supposedly, to recreate Silicon Valley, all you need is a bunch of nerds and a bunch of rich guys. Now, nerds like hanging out with other nerds, and good schools such as Stanford and Berkeley are probably the best way to attract the proper amount of nerds needed. Rich guys, on the other hand, they either get rich within the industry and reinvest their fortunes into new startups, new companies, or they get rich some other place, and they want to move someplace where they can enjoy the good life. And seems like Silicon Valley has it all. They got the nerds, they got the rich guys, and that's all you need. Well, that plus 100 years. What you also need is people who get up and do it. In the words of Richard Branson, a serial entrepreneur who has revolutionized many industries, and he's famous for starting his new ventures by saying, "Screw it, let's do it." This is the much-needed attitude. Because you need courage. You need chutzpah to start a new business. You need the confidence in your abilities, and then success can come. But wait, doesn't confidence come from success? Isn't this a chicken and egg situation? I'll give you another point of view. I started doing business, developing websites when I was 16, and I started my first company when I was 18. I had nothing to lose. I was just playing on the computer. Instead, I wasn't playing Duke Nukem or Doom. I was learning how to code. And my first paid job was a website for a US company where I was an exchange student. And I did a website for them, and I charged an astounding $350 for it. And I thought to myself, man, this can be a good business. So when I got back, I continued with the business, obviously. And years later, I merged my business with 4 more friends to create what is now 3 companies. Most of you will know the online retailer Mimo Vrste. The rest of you might recognize Domain Sour D-Labs. And these 3 companies today employ more than 100 people and are quite successful. Since then, I've devoted most of my time, I might add, I stepped out of the company as well. Last year, I was able to step down as the CEO of my company and start helping my 3 companies from a non-executive role. This is because I want to keep the knowledge and experience within the ecosystem, because that's the only way the ecosystem can grow. This story might sound familiar in the US. However, it's very rare in Slovenia. We were taught here to be average, not outstanding. We were raised to go to work, focus on the punch clock, get out of work as soon as you can, grab a drink and bitch about your boss. The creative potential, our generation was actually raised in a different time. It was raised in socialism, and then we grew up in the transitional time between socialism and capitalism. And now this generation is having difficulties finding its way in this new environment, in capitalism, globalization, the market economy. The creative potential of this first digital generation is not being properly harvested. I believe we have a limited time before all talent escapes this country and this region. And we need to make the most of this time. We need our government to realize that small and medium businesses with high added value are the future of our economy. Let's take Germany, for example. They seem to have gotten out of the crisis the fastest and the best. But their economy is based on small and medium businesses, small family-owned businesses. They represent 99.7% of all businesses, much as any other country. However, in Germany, they represent 38% of all turnover, 49% of value added, and 60% of all jobs. This is what I mean when I say that this is the future of a sustainable economy. But, let's be honest, the companies and the entrepreneurs were not ready either. There's a few things missing, but they're hiding just beneath the surface. And this is what I want to talk about next. I'll give you an example. A Slovenian company with more than 100 years of tradition has been making pretty much the exact same sandal for decades now. But it took a German company, a family-owned company, by the way, to make them into a fashion accessory. We have a long tradition of engineering and craftsmanship here, but we have very few people who know how to transform manufacturable products into marketable products, who know how to take a product and turn it into a business. That's why we need business angels. This is my call to all experienced entrepreneurs who've done it before to come out and start helping the young entrepreneurs create better products and sustainable businesses. Your knowledge and your experience needs to be recycled, needs to be reused so that the ecosystem can grow, so that there's more companies and less mistakes repeated. I walked the path from an entrepreneur at 16 to be able today to help young entrepreneurs with feedback and advice because I want to help. And despite the unfavorable circumstances, I'm not yet ready to abandon this region. But why would I? Life here in Slovenia, the quality of life is much better than in Silicon Valley. And if the environment, the city, the culture is of any importance, and most people will say that it is one of the key success factors, then we've already won. Our capital is beautiful. It's a great place to live. It's home to the biggest university and many other businesses. We even nicknamed it the Silicon Gardens, but this was aimed at the public and the media to let them know that there is no need to look for good stories in Silicon Valley because the ecosystem of startups and entrepreneurs exists here as well. So you might as well take our stories and promote them. We're extremely lucky here in our neck of the woods to have the quality of life that we do. We know how to enjoy life. We know how to take the time to hang out with friends or eat a proper meal. We shouldn't lose this. We need to find the confidence to start new businesses while maintaining the quality of life that we have. Because this can make our region unique and attract talent and investors. And now we need you, the craftsmen and engineers, to say, screw it, let's do it. If you have an idea, do it. If you're working at a dead-end job, quit and turn your passion or your hobby into a business. Confidence is not going to fall from the sky. You need to find the courage and say, screw it. I'll do it. Thank you.